Welcome to the Chaos Commanders podcast. I'm Annie, aka Commander A, military wife, mom of two, and seasoned in navigating deployments, juggling schedules, and life's unpredictable missions.
And I'm Katelynn, aka Commander K, solo mom to a busy, neurodivergent teenage boy, business owner, and skilled chaos wrangler.
We're here for the moms who do it all, the sideline CEOs, the late night warriors, the women leading in their homes, businesses, and beyond.
If you've ever felt like you're running a tactical operation just to get through the day, this is the place for you. We're bringing raw, unfiltered conversations, honest insights, and tangible strategies to help you command the chaos like the Wonder Woman you are.
So grab your coffee, wine, or whatever keeps you going, because we're diving in. Welcome back to the Chaos Commanders. Today we are going to be learning a lot about Katelynn, aka Commander K, who I think is also quite the badass. Just her bravery, the fact that she does it all. It's super inspiring. I know when I'm having a hard day, I look to her for some strength. So take it away, Katelynn.
Okay, here we go. So the quick version is that I am an Okie living in Iowa. I'm a single mom due to domestic violence. Dr. Phil saved my life. I have a neurodivergent teenage boy. I've been a stepmom, a working mom, a work-from-home mom, and a homeschooling mom. I built and lost an amazing business after trusting the wrong person, and I'm actively working to break cycles of family trauma and abuse. So keep listening if you want all of the juicy details, because I am an open book.
Before we get started on this open book, what is the song for our podcast playlist?
Yes, the fun part. So, Are You That Somebody by Aaliyah. I remember that being the very first song that I would record. I recorded it on VHS, the music video from MTV, and would...
You're dating yourself.
I know. It's bad. I would rewind that darn thing so many times and learn every dance move. It is... I did not know what the song was about. I watched it again today, and I thought that was probably pretty inappropriate for how old I was at the time. As were the dance moves. So what was my mother thinking? But to her credit, she was probably at work while I was doing this. But it inspired me, and I went from like loving country music to wanting to be a hip hop dancer. And then I got on the hip hop dance team in high school and was on the stomp team. And I mean, that's really how I made friends, because I'm super shy and introverted. And so if I had not done that and like gotten those skills, I may have been like a total loser in high school. So there's that.
Thank goodness for that song.
Exactly.
And VHS.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay.
Give it to us.
Ready for the juicy details. Okay. So I was born and raised in Oklahoma. Then definitely you'll hear my accent come out every once in a while, and I still throw it y'all around here and there.
Love it. Love it.
Yes. So anyway, that is where I grew up. That's where Katelynn was born, my son. So, and that's where all of my family is. So we'll get to a fun story about that and how that all changed here in just a minute. But growing up, I always knew that I wanted to work with premature babies. When I was younger, I always wanted to babysit kids and be around kids. I always wanted to either be a neonatologist or a NICU nurse. And so that was always my plan, was to go to school and be a nurse. And I was on that path. Anyway, so we'll dive in a little more to that and how that changed again here in a few minutes. A little more background. I am the only girl. I have two brothers that are living. One brother passed away before I was born, but I have an older brother that is 11 years older than me. He's 15 years older than my younger brother. So yeah, we're really spread out. So middle child, only girl. Parents got divorced whenever I was, I think, 9. A lot of trauma with my father in a lot of different ways. So there was sexual abuse. There was a lot of financial abuse with the family. He stole money from my little brother at one point. He would pawn our toys to get money for cigarettes. Like, just a lot of horrible things that would happen. So yeah, not a great time growing up. Just a lot of toxicity in my family. So then when I was about 17, my very first boyfriend died. And that just like came out of nowhere. He had a medical condition that he hadn't told me about. And I think it was something that like he knew about since he was a kid, but it just kind of like came back in his adult life. And because he was a couple years older than me. And yeah, it just kind of happened unexpectedly and really wrecked me at the time. And so that was hard to come back from, for sure.
Of course.
Yeah, it was a lot of trauma as a kid. And strangely enough, my mom went to school for like family life, gerontology, psychology, lots of those things. And I was a hard-headed kiddo, right? Pushed back a lot on like counseling and things like that. But I definitely needed counseling, I think, at the time. And should have probably been forced more into it and wasn't.
Right.
So anyway, it was just interesting that there just wasn't more pressure to have some of those things that I was going through addressed.
I think it was the time too, right?
Yeah.
So we do a lot of counseling now. I think we're more aware of mental health, and I think back in the dinosaur ages, as Katelynn loves to say, her son, it was just, more tough love, right? Like,
yeah.
Put some dirt on it.
Exactly. And my mom was a single mom too at the time. So to her credit, she probably thought that she knew enough from her schooling that she was helping me a lot. And then also she was a single mom and stressed for time, and, trying to leave work for appointments is also stressful when you're a single parent. And, so there's all of that went along with it. But yeah, I definitely could have used some more help. And I'm sure that not getting the help I needed back at that time, continued to affect later on, decisions that were made and just different things like that.
Sure.
So, yep. I think that a lot of those things affected dating and things like that. And so in my 20s, this is where it gets really exciting. In my 20s, I had kind of a whirlwind romance with a former high school classmate. And I was suddenly stepmom to a disabled toddler and mom to a NICU baby of my own. So that was just a relationship that happened very quickly. We got married and had our kiddo really quickly, and I was thrown into being a stepmom. It was a lot all at once. It was very fast, and it was a lot of the phrases that you throw around today, right? The love bombing. I mean, it's real. It is real for sure. My mother loves to remind me that the day that my ex-husband picked me up for our first date, I wasn't quite ready. And so she got to visit with him for a few minutes in the living room. And after he and I left to go on her date, she was just like, oh no. Oh, heck no. Like, this cannot happen, right? And it was just mother's intuition. And she was right, of course, and she loves to remind me of that.
Mothers are never right until you're in your mid-20s.
Right?
I'm certain of that.
It's hard when they are right. And, in my defense, I had a very opinionated family who had not loved my dating choices. And whether they were right or wrong about that, it was hard when you feel like they're against you and kind of, you feel like, well, they're not wanting me to be happy or, any of those things, right? Like,
and young love.
Yes,
too.
Exactly. And so you just kind of don't feel like you can trust that they have your best interests, right? That it's other motives that they have. And so I wasn't going to listen at the time. And I definitely should have, but if I had, I wouldn't have Katelynn. And so I have zero regrets about any of that. But yeah, it was definitely a date I could have never gone on. And the course of my life would have been a lot different, that's for sure.
Yes, I don't think we would know each other had you not gone on that date. So good job going on that date.
Yes, exactly. So that relationship deteriorated very quickly. As a matter of fact, while I was pregnant with Katelynn, I actually had to move out because there were already signs of some domestic violence things. I ended up moving back. We tried to make things work because I thought that was what was best for the kiddos. It ultimately did not work out. I was in school at the time trying to become a nurse, and I ended up having to quit school because of jealousy of my husband. I was having to travel to another town because we had relocated, and I was still having to travel back to where I had previously been going to school. And he was worried because there was someone there in that town that I had previously dated. We were no longer in contact with each other, but he was just worried that if I went to go take a test at the school, that I would go see my ex-boyfriend at the time. It was just stuff that was unrealistic, that wasn't going to happen. I was in a committed relationship and had no intention of doing anything like that, but it caused drama. And so in order to protect myself and my family and everything that was going on, it was like, okay, I'll drop out of school to make you happy. You know, it was just, you do what you have to do in those moments. And so, yeah, that kind of ended that career dream for me at that point in time. And I figured I could pick it up again later. But then since my son ended up in the NICU, I decided that was not maybe what I wanted to do with my life.
Right.
That was kind of traumatizing to be a NICU mom.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
I had already had experience in the NICU before, but once you have your own NICU baby, you're kind of like, maybe I don't want to have to take that home with me every day, right? Because like, even if it's not your baby, you're going to get attached to those little ones. And I just thought like emotionally, that's probably something I cannot handle, especially once I became a mom. You know, I just saw it differently.
Right.
And so I decided I was going to change my major after all of that happened. But when Katelynn was about 2 months old, I noticed that my bank account was negative by thousands of dollars. And I confronted my husband about it and found out that he had lost his job while I was in the hospital with our premature baby. And that after that, he had been pretending to go to work every day. And upon further investigation, I found out that like he had been going to a wine bar and other things. And I knew that he had a drinking problem after we had been in a relationship for a little while. Like it had revealed itself over time. But that was hard to realize that he was just concealing that this job loss had happened, and he had purchased large Christmas presents for myself and for all of our family, and I guess just thought that I was never going to notice that we had no money and actually had negative money.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a rage-filled day for sure. So things just really spiraled from there, and I just realized that I had unfortunately married a violent alcoholic with a lying problem. Things had been progressively getting worse with violence and things like that. I mean, he used to chase me through the house at different points and throw things, hit the wall next to my head, just different things like that. But it got to the point where I would hear the garage door open and just the anxiety would just start racing and it would just take over. And sometimes I would just go ahead and go lock myself in a room to try to avoid it for a little while, because I never knew like what mood he was going to be in when he got home. It got to the point where I just really didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like the kids were safe. And I knew that they were suffering from it too, from everything that was going on, even if they were little. It was not a good environment to be in. So, how did Dr. Phil save my life?
Yes, how did Dr. Phil save your life?
So, as bad as everything had gotten with just all of the arguing and the things like getting physical, you know, there were never marks on me. It was just getting to the point that there was shoving, there was things being broken in the house. There was a lot of very lengthy conversations. There was financial abuse and like financial secrecy, I guess, where like I wouldn't have known how to pay things, right, if anything had happened, just because there was a lot of
he kept you financially helpless.
Yes, exactly. Like there's just a lot of secrecy and everything, but there was a lot of just arguments over things that were just absolutely ridiculous, and I would just get lectured. And sometimes it would be that I was like in a vehicle, a moving vehicle, or a vehicle where like, where am I going to get out and go, right? Because we're not anywhere near home, and I just have to sit here and listen to him lecture me about something. One of those was when I was pregnant. I'll get back to Dr. Phil in a second, but this is just a good example of like the lectures that would happen. One was when I was pregnant. We had gone to the doctor for one of our appointments, and the doctor had asked, had I ever had any other children? And I said no, because I physically had never given birth to another child. And so we get to the end of the appointment and get out to the car, and I'm getting berated about the fact that I did not claim his daughter as one of my children.
Ugh.
Because I had not given birth to her.
Right. The doctor doesn't want to know that.
Yeah. Like, that's the type of stuff that's just, like, insane, right? It's like, I didn't need to explain that I have a stepdaughter. That's not what he was asking about, you know? But it was just little things like that where like I was the devil because I didn't say, well, no, I haven't physically given birth to another child, but let me tell you about my amazing stepdaughter and blah, blah, blah. You know, like who gets mad about that? So anyway, Dr. Phil. So my mom and I used to watch Dr. Phil and Oprah and things like that. And so when I had my son and was home with him and my stepdaughter, I was watching an episode and I saw a lady on there and she was concerned about her relationship with her husband and the fighting that they had been doing, and they had actually recorded videos of her and her husband in their home fighting. And so the conversation with Dr. Phil was about her safety and just everything that had been going on in the relationship. And Dr. Phil talked to her about the nature of that relationship and how dangerous it was. And he said to her that if one of you doesn't leave the house, someone's going to end up killed. And your uncle, I know you feel like you don't have anywhere to go, but he said your uncle is here in the audience today and he is willing to let you come live with him while you get all of this sorted out. And I want you to go home with him, you know. And I watched the episode and I watched the videos of her and her husband just yelling at her and taking keys away so that she couldn't leave and different things like that. And there had been an incident when my husband and we had gone to counseling, and he had done a very similar thing with my son in his carrier was at my feet, and he got mad at me in the counseling office and reached over and took keys away and was going to just leave us there at the counseling office and run off with the car. And anyway, just all of those things adding up. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I have to get out of here. Like, I feel like Dr. Phil is talking to me right now. Katelynn, if you don't leave, someone in this house is going to end up dead. And so I called my little brother that day and I said, can you please come get us out of here? Like, I need to leave or this is not going to end well. And he got his friend and got a trailer and came and picked us up, and I got everything packed and we got out of there. And so, yeah, Dr. Phil saved my life.
And thank goodness.
Yes. Yes. And the reason that I say he saved my life is because the next girl was not so lucky. I did leave in time. And I don't know what would have happened to me or Katelynn or to my stepdaughter if we had stayed. It's not just like a, something bad could have happened, because I saw what happened to the next person who didn't get out soon enough. So, yeah, it was...
Thank goodness. Thank goodness you left.
Yeah, it was not good. And I'm thankful for Dr. Phil. And I actually wrote the Dr. Phil show. And I told them, like, your show saved my life. And they wrote me back. And they were like, we'd like to get your stories. But I was so terrified at the time.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course you were.
Of, like, putting all of that out there and getting my ex-husband involved in all of it, because they said they had to interview all the parties and everything.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I was like, I do not need any more of him in my life. So I ended up not moving forward with it. But clearly it was a story because they were interested in it. So that happened when my son was 6 months old, that my brother came and got him and we moved out. I think our divorce was final in like 2012. And I got full custody of my son and everything. So I have full physical and legal custody of him. And so while we were going through our divorce process, my ex-husband already got engaged to someone else. And fine, let her have him, right?
Right, except maybe scary for her.
Right. So he got engaged to someone else while we were going through our divorce, and she is the one that didn't get out in time. Luckily, he did not end her life, but it came very close. And he ended up getting 33 years in prison.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, for what he did to her. So it was a huge ordeal.
It could have been you.
Yes. Yep.
Awful.
I almost vomited when I read the report. Actually, it was when I even heard that anything had happened. I didn't have the full report when I got so sick about it, but it was just one of those immediate, like, oh my gosh, that could have been me. It could have been me and Katelynn. But then I got the report and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I won't go into detail about it, but it was hours of torture. And then finally he took her to the hospital, turned around at one point, then finally did take her to the hospital, and the nurses called the police while they were evaluating her and everything. And so got 33 years. I think he was able to serve some of the charges concurrently. So that took it down. And then he was released after 1 year.
Wow.
Yeah. Incredible, right?
Incredible. And I just, like, I'm in awe of how brave you are. And that I'm so glad that I feel awful that happened to her, but I'm so thankful that wasn't you. And good job to you for, it's like a gut thing, right? Like, we listen to our guts.
Yeah.
Good job, Mama.
Thank you. Yes. And to our listeners, always listen to your gut. And I know that, like, leaving is the most dangerous time. So you have to figure that out, right? Because that is the most dangerous time. But luckily, I had brothers, which can be scary for attackers. You know, if you have men around you that can help, that definitely helps. So I by no means claim to be an expert in people trying to leave domestic violence situations, because I know it can be dangerous, but I know that staying is never a good choice either.
Even more dangerous.
Yeah. So, yeah, he got out after a year. He wanted to see my son. During that time, I had gone back to school. I had changed my major. We were moving on with life and everything, and we were doing well. And so he gets out and he wants to see my son. And I mean, it's our son, but it's my son.
But he's your son. I claim him too.
Yes. And so, of course, like, at that point, I mean, I'm a law-abiding citizen, okay? And I'm like, okay, well, you know, we have this agreement that, you know, I have to let him see him. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I'm a single mom who has not been getting child support. I don't have money to fight this, right? And so what do you do? And so I let him see him, and I knew that in my gut, I knew it was the wrong thing to do, but, like, what can I do is how I felt. And so I let him see him, and he sees him a few times. And then all of a sudden, my kid, who was doing fantastic, is stuttering and wetting the bed and grabbing his throat at night and telling me that he feels like he's choking. And so I have to take him to his pediatrician and to a child psychologist. And everyone's telling me it's change in parental circumstances, and that it's stress, obviously, about all of this stuff with Dad. And the visits start getting more, he starts getting more upset about going to these visits. And he says he wants to see his sister, but he doesn't want to see his dad, and wouldn't call him Dad. He calls him by his first name. And so he doesn't want to see him. He says he makes him feel yucky. He makes him feel angry, and he doesn't want to go. And so at that point in time, I spoke with an attorney. I was speaking with a child psychologist. Everybody recommended I had to write this letter. We had to request some evaluations on ex-husband's part, and he chose not to participate in any of it. So at that point, visitation, like, they wanted it to be a more basically supervised, a slower, they wanted it to not be on his terms. It needed to be on something that was structured by a professional in the best interest of Katelynn. And he didn't want to agree to do that. So at that point, the visits stopped.
Thank goodness.
Yes. Yep. So then everything improved from there. So then I was really just, like, looking for a change. I wanted to get out of Oklahoma. I was having terrible migraines because it gets so hot down there. Just lots of health things. And I know people laugh when I say that it's hot in Oklahoma compared to Iowa, but it really is hotter down there.
Yeah, for like the 8 seconds I've been in Oklahoma, it is hot.
Yes. Yeah, like the summer before, I think it was the summer before we moved to Iowa, we had a summer where there was over 60 days in a row of over 100-degree temperatures.
No thanks.
Yeah.
No thank you.
So when people are like, it's not that much different, I'm like, there's like a week here where it's that hot. Okay, people? So I definitely like it in Iowa better. My health has been better. I don't know. It's prettier here. And, you know, there's the whole Iowa nice thing. I like it here a lot. So we came to visit in 2015 because I'm a nerd and I knew I wanted to move out of Oklahoma. So I just started doing a bunch of research and I made a spreadsheet, and it had all my data on it of, like, I want a place that's good for single moms. I want a place that is not as hot in the summer. I want a place that has good schools and good jobs. And I wanted good income, right? Like, I mean, there were just so many different criteria. And so I made a spreadsheet, and then I had it like organize all of these cities by like which city has the most of the things that I want, right? And all of these Iowa cities came to the top. And I was like, well, I've never been to Iowa, so let's go to Iowa and check it out. And my family thought I was absolutely insane, right? But whatever, it was a vacation. So we came in the summer of 2015 and we went to Ankeny. That was the first place we went. Went to Living History Farms, just all kinds of places. My son was obsessed with the idea of becoming a firefighter at the time. So we went to one of the West Des Moines fire stations, and they let him like do all the things and turn the lights on and honk the horn. And
oh yeah, they're brilliant over there. They love letting kids come and learn. And one of our neighbors, before we moved into our house that we're currently in, he was a West Des Moines firefighter.
Oh, how cool.
Mike, you're the best. But yeah, they're great.
They're so nice. Yeah, he had the best time. And so, yeah, we just fell in love with it here. Like everywhere we went, people were so nice. And I don't know, it was just the change that we were looking for. It wasn't too far away from home. Like it was still within like a drive, it's like 7.5, 8 hours. So we felt like we could still visit family. It still felt enough like home, but it was different enough. And so it just felt like it was the place for us. So yeah, it took a little bit of time. I wanted to finish college before we could come, and like I busted my butt to do that. And we were able to move in.
What was your degree?
It is strategic communications.
Okay.
Yep. So we moved in 2017 and got up here, didn't know anyone. Again, my family thought I was crazy. I packed the U-Haul myself. I towed my car. I hired a couple of guys to help me unload when I got here because I knew I was just going to be exhausted. And then I had left Katelynn in Oklahoma to do all of this because I was like, well, I can't take him, with me to get all that done.
Sure.
So I literally unloaded, slept a night, and then drove back down to Oklahoma the next day to go get him. So it was a whirlwind, but did that, got up here. And right before we had moved, I actually came up here with him on spring break and had found an apartment, applied for a bunch of jobs. I begged and pleaded with a daycare to just take him for 1 week so that I could apply for jobs because most places, they don't just take a kid for a week.
Oh, no.
No. So I was like, will you please just let him come for 1 week while I apply for jobs? And I found one that did. So yeah, it all fell together and made it happen and got up here. And yeah, so we've pretty much been here ever since, except for 10 months when we moved my mom back home and stayed there for a little bit. So we have loved it here. My son got involved in martial arts in 2019. And so that is where we eventually met Annie, Commander A, and her family. So that's where that whole relationship happened. And so
it took us a while to become friends.
It did.
Mostly, I think our kids were on very different cycles.
Yes.
Of the day, your days and times would vary depending on your skill. And so, it did take us a hot minute to get to know each other. I didn't start until a year and a half after Raina.
Yeah.
And so then Caden would have been more in the adult classes. So yeah, it took some time.
And he also started the adult classes earlier than what they were supposed to because we all know that he would go a little hard
on the... He was a little aggressive.
Yeah, on the sparring.
And so we got to be a little aggressive with him.
Yes. So he got bumped up to get a taste of his own medicine with the teens and adults. So yeah, he was, just because they're difference in belt levels and their age difference.
Right.
He was not really in your kids' classes.
Right.
And so it wasn't really until you started and then you were in the adult class with Katelynn that we really got to see you much.
Yep.
So we had seen the kiddos around when he would help with leadership a little bit. And I remember probably seeing Andre more at first just because of his uniform.
Yes.
He stood out.
Yeah, right. He was the only uniform there.
Yes. So then that was kind of a slow progression.
A slow burn.
Yeah, to become friends. But then once we were, it just took off.
Well, it was funny because we had just started becoming friends. And then she's like, oh, by the way, we're moving back to Oklahoma. And I'm like, excuse me, what are you doing? No, ma'am. No.
Yep.
So I just kept staying in touch with her because I was like, you're moving back here, by the way. Like, I keep hearing rumors that you're just going to, like, travel the world, but you're actually going to move back to Iowa. So let me know when that's happening. And 10 months later, she's like, hey, guess what?
I'm coming back. Yep. And the cool thing is that when we were in Oklahoma, we did still get to participate in martial arts stuff. So Caden did some classes. He didn't love it, but he did some classes via Zoom or Google Meet, whichever.
We would get to see him when we were all on the floor. There was a television and we could see him. So that was really fun to still get to be part of his experience.
Yeah. And then we traveled a little bit while we were down there still for competitions. And you didn't go to Georgia, but we did go to Georgia for one of the things. And so saw one of the other families there. There weren't very many people from our academy that went, but we got to still participate in that. And we knew that we weren't going to stay in Oklahoma. Our options were that we were either going to go travel and try to do some like world schooling because we were homeschooling at the time. And so that was one of the opportunities that we were maybe going to do, or come back to Iowa. So those were kind of our options.
She definitely made the right choice. I mean, not everybody would say that, but I think she made the right choice.
I definitely did. I did, for sure. So martial arts was amazing. We got to travel all over. Caden was super dedicated to that. So he was often there 5 to 7 days a week. He took his own classes and also assisted with leadership. And so luckily we lived right around the corner because it felt like we lived there sometimes. So this is all pre-move back to Oklahoma. In 2019, I got blood clots, and that was one of the scariest times because at that point in time, I guess I should say...
You were back in Iowa when that happened.
Yeah, we were in Iowa. We had not moved down to Oklahoma yet at that point. We hadn't moved back to Oklahoma. And so, 2019, we're living in Iowa. My mom has moved back and forth to Iowa several times. So like I said, in 2017, we moved up here by ourselves. Shortly after that, my mom ended up moving up here because the house that she was given by her aunt, my great aunt, decided to take it away from her. And so she did not have a place to live. So she came and lived with us. But at the time in 2019, when I got blood clots, my mom was not living with us. And I had been feeling sick for a month, had to go to the emergency room. Long story short, they were like, do you have family here? No, I do not. And they called my mom and she had to rush from Oklahoma to Iowa to come take care of my son and my dogs. I was in the hospital for 8 days and had a very long recovery. Couldn't eat for months, and it was all like intestinal. I had intestinal blood clots.
I mean, I just have to add, like, this was super intense. Like, they gave you a 50-50 chance of surviving these blood clots.
Yes.
Like, to the point that you had to, what, for your son?
Yeah, we talked about this the other day, actually. I had to write a goodbye letter to my kiddo because, I mean, it was serious enough that I didn't want to just, pass and him not have something from me, right? And so, I felt like that was something I had to do. And I messaged my little brother and I was like, Mom doesn't know how to use phones. So here's my code to my phone. Here's where she can find pictures. Here's where my letter is to Caden. I wrote one to Mom too. Here's where she can find them. Horrible thing to have to do. And he had to spend his birthday that year in the hospital with me. We laughed about it later. When he was born, he spent 8 days in the NICU. And then that year, I spent 8 days in the hospital, and it was over his birthday.
It came full circle.
It did.
But we get to laugh about it now.
We do laugh about it now. And his martial arts instructor was fantastic. Master Wood, shout out to you, and helped talk with him. He shared a personal story about his sister and losing her when he was a teenager and that experience, and talked to Caden about when you have hard times, you come up to the academy and you take it out on the mat and the bags. And he was just really there for Caden during that super scary time because Caden, he turned 9 that year. So he was a little boy and I'm his only parent. And that was really, really scary, especially when he was here with Mom by himself. And we didn't have a lot of friends here at that point in time, because we were still pretty new to Iowa.
And you were homeschooling at that point, right? Or
No,
he was actually in school
at that point. Yep. And so one of my coworkers, Dina, shout out to you, she actually rescued him from the hospital, took him home to her house that night. He'd never met her before. And she took care of him and my dogs for a couple of days until my mom could get up here. So yeah, it takes a village. And when you are by yourself and you're a single parent, and especially if you don't have family nearby, man, you've got to go out and make friends and have community and just find your people, because I'm the perfect example of that, because I'm super shy and that's hard for me. But like, I have definitely had moments where I needed that and needed those people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a rough time. I had just started a new job when that happened, and then COVID hits.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. And so my mom moved in with us that summer because she had come during the blood clots, but then she went right back home shortly after that. And so she ended up moving in with us that summer. And then we have ended up having to live together for the next 5 years. And for anyone who has had to live with their mother as an adult, I feel for you. I love her, but oh my gosh, it is so hard. And we never thought that it was going to be for as long as it has been. So we are parting ways on Tuesday.
A new chapter.
Yes, Tuesday of next week. This will have already happened when you are listening to this episode, but her moving out, she said, is my birthday present this year. So anyway, during COVID, my son struggled through online 4th grade, and I was let go from my job, really because of all of that, in the spring of 2021 while we were trying to just really get his mental health under control and everything. It worked out because I had already taken a virtual assistant course through the Virtual Savvy. If anybody is looking to become a virtual assistant, I highly recommend that program. I started freelancing because I had done that course, and I was then able to grow my business into a creative studio called Her Humble Hive. In the Virtual Savvy, they have a lot of milestones that you can hit. They kind of gamify it, which is really cool. And I was able to hit my first $10,000 month within the first year of starting my business.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was so rewarding, and the way that they set everything up, it just really pushes you to hit that next level and everything. And so it was very motivating. So then my son decided to try 5th grade in person. Schools had opened back up. Things were changing with COVID and everything. So he decided to try 5th grade in person, and that did not go well. I think all of the kids were struggling from the changes that had happened during COVID, and a lot of they weren't so used to socializing in person.
Right. Well, they weren't allowed to for weeks.
Yep, absolutely. And my son is quirky, right? He's different.
Well, he's an old soul.
Yes.
So, I mean, he'd rather have a conversation with adults than hang with... I mean, I should say that lightly because he goes and hangs out with my kids all the time. But
yes,
he is very intuitive. He is an old soul. He's... The level of manners that this woman has instilled in her son are, very high. Very high. I mean, this kid, you walk into a room and the first thing he's going to do is compliment you. And it's not rubbish. It is genuinely I really like your hair today, or I love your shirt, or, what 14-year-old does that? So, I mean, he's magnetic in a way that kids might not be able to relate to that.
I love the way you put that. I think it is a lot of times he doesn't always relate as well to same age peers. He does great with younger kids, and he does great with older boys. He did a running program recently. It's a running team that they were doing an indoor track season. And so he did this, and he was with all high school boys that are right on the verge of going to college. And the coach at the end told me how much the boys loved having him there, and that he just got along so well with all of them and was so respectful to all of them and everything, and that he's welcome to come back anytime. He was definitely the youngest one there, and he connects better with kiddos that are older than him in that way, or with younger kids, and then obviously with adults. He just gets along with adults really well.
Right.
So.
He's a bunny chaser and he's a leader. And then there's that middle ground that's really foreign for him. And
yeah,
part of growing up, but he is who he is. And we love him for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, there was just a lot. And I mean, he'll tell you, he's like, I didn't make the best choices in 5th grade. Like, he doesn't think he's perfect, and he knows that he has contributed to some of the issues that he's had, right? We work a lot on accountability and taking responsibility for our part of things that don't necessarily go the best. And I think that's really important too, because you can't just always think that things don't go well because of other people. And so, yeah, it didn't go well. And so we ended up having to pull him out of 5th grade a little bit early and switch into homeschool. So we did that. And we also finally got a diagnosis from getting some testing done and found out that he has intrusive thought OCD. So he deals with a lot of internal things that I didn't realize he was dealing with. And recently, I also found out that he deals with rejection sensitive dysphoria. So when he's feeling rejected by peers, there's a lot of emotions behind that. So that's been interesting. So we switched to homeschooling. He definitely gave me a lot of pushback about that. So that wasn't the best solution either, but we did what we had to do at the time. And at the height of my business success, so right around the time I hit that $10,000 a month, we decided to move my mom back to Oklahoma. There was a lot around that decision, and a lot of it had to do with some family stuff, and it was a decision that needed to be made at the time. At that same time, I unfortunately had trusted the wrong person as a business partner and really lost everything right after we got to Oklahoma. So unfortunately, it was like the decision had already been made, the money had already been spent to move, and then everything kind of came crashing down. So recovering has been a challenge over the past couple of years. We're doing it, and the business is going to come back.
Yep.
We're working on that because I 1000% believe in it, and also some other business things that are brewing.
Because Katelynn's brilliant, and I am happy to remind her all the time that she has so many tools in her belt, and I think sometimes we can get lost in our mistakes and our faults, and you got to be like Elsa and let it go.
Yes.
And you can't move on. You are paralyzed until you do.
Yes.
So I've been trying to help Katelynn unparalyze herself.
Yes.
And move forward, which is probably easier said than done because I have not been in that position, but I will cheer you on.
Yes. Annie is the best cheerleader. And, I think it's hard to recover from something like that and to trust yourself again when you're the sole breadwinner, right? Mm-hmm. Because, it was a catastrophic mistake. It was a deal that was going to be life-changing, and then it was essentially something was stolen out from under me, and it became life-changing in the opposite way. Mm-hmm. And it caused everything that I had already accomplished on my own to really come crashing down. And there was just no way to stop it really at that point, because of all the decisions that were made because of faith and trust being put into this person. And so my mom was supposed to get her own place down there. And because of family issues, I had to be the one to move down there with her, make sure she got settled in and all of that. And so that's why we were down there. And she was supposed to get moved into a place, and it was not ready yet. And the house we were renting got sold. And so we ended up moving back to Iowa earlier than we planned, and Mom came with us. So things did not go as planned at all with that whole situation, but Annie was happy that we were coming back.
Oh yeah, I was ready for it. I was here for it.
Yes, so it was a good move. It was, I
didn't know all those details at the time. Like, again, we were just kind of beginning this budding friendship, and we weren't to the level of, like, spill all your inner details. So, I mean, I had no clue why they were moving back. I was just like, rah, rah, here we go. Yeah. Welcome back.
Yeah. And I'm like, kind of in a panic and also not thrilled that we're bringing Mom back with us and, all the things. So, yeah, this is honestly a therapeutic episode because Annie has gotten to learn some things.
I'm sitting here like, oh, okay.
Yeah, she didn't know all of this stuff, so it's good. But yeah, so then we moved back to Iowa, and then my son decides that he wants to go back to public school for 8th grade. And so he gets to the public school here, and day one, he gets some of his school supplies stolen from 2 kiddos who remembered him from one of the elementary schools that he went to, and they didn't like him. And he had not gone to that school since 2nd grade. So they steal some school supplies, and then they just proceed to keep picking on him. And there are some football players, and I mean, he's not like a nerdy kid. He's an athletic kid. Not that there's anything wrong with being a nerdy kid, but I'm just saying, like, it's not your typical, like, movie scenario where it's, like, football players picking on a kid with, like, thick glasses or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a bizarre situation.
Well, I mean, we should paint the picture, right? So he goes to his open house of the school.
Meet the teachers.
He's coming straight from martial arts, so he's in his uniform. He's got nothing to be ashamed of because he's absolutely rocks at martial arts. And every single teacher that he meets, he approaches them with a handshake. Mm-hmm. Probably the only 8th grade student to do that.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of kid that he is. That's how you've raised him. And nothing against the way anybody else raises their child, because we all do the very best we can. But like, so that you know, I mean, I'm sure as another 8th grade student, trying to put myself in the 8th grade frame of mind, like, who's this dork in his uniform shaking hand, you know, just, and not even to be like negative like that, but like, oh, I didn't think to go and shake my teacher's hand. So, you know, there's like this playing ground, right?
Exactly. And the thing is that like he hadn't actually come from martial arts. What he had come from was, it was open house night for the entire district. And he had actually come from open house night at one of the elementary schools where he had been running martial arts drills for the elementary kids as they were meeting their teachers and getting to go do fun activities in the gym. So he had actually been volunteering his time at the elementary school for those kids to have fun on their open house night. And that's why he was in his uniform. And so we had to go straight from that school to his school. He didn't have time to change. And that's why he was in that uniform. But yeah, there were kids making jokes about, oh, he thinks he's a Cobra Kai and things like that already that night. And so, yeah, it put a target on his back, I think, a little bit with some of the kids. The teachers loved it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, and one of the teachers was like, oh my gosh, this is quite the flex. And like, I will never forget this, you know, and just was really impressed with him and everything. And I mean, the teachers loved him and everything went great in that aspect. He got straight A's at that school while he was there. But the bullying from those 2 children just kept on. And I could not get the administration to move him out of the class that he was in with these kids who kept picking on him until it was really too late. And I had already started looking at other options, and they kept bullying him, not even just in the class, but then they were on the football field or in their car line with their parent. And he would be running by them when he was in cross country. And if a girl happened to be in front of him, then it was a comment of like, oh, how does it feel to get beaten by a girl? You know, things like that. And so it was just nonstop. And so finally I pulled him from the school, and he ended up going to a private school. And we thought that would be better because it's a smaller environment. Hopefully there would be more supervision, things like that. And that turned out not to be true. He loved the teachers there, getting straight A's there. Curriculum is more advanced because he was pretty bored at the public school as well. So the curriculum was harder for him, which was good. Everything was going well. And so he liked all of that about the school. But again, he was having a hard time connecting with peers. When he got there, everything started with, you're too nice. You're too respectful. You're too polite. Everything was, he's too much of this. And so then he decides, well, you know, he'll try to start being a little more like them. And those were not good traits to have. And so he's trying to fit in, and it's
not that he doesn't fit in. I mean, he fit in at martial arts.
Yeah.
He fits in at his church group.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just, I think it's the environment that he's not responding well to.
Yeah. It's like the educational environment when there is maybe not so much supervision and the kids...
Not high enough expectations.
Yes.
For everybody to follow.
Yes, for everyone to follow. I feel like he does really well in places where there are expectations that you act a certain way and you behave, and because he has high expectations of himself and others. And so when those expectations are not there and kids are allowed to say all kinds of horrible things and do all kinds of horrible things, that's when things start to kind of deteriorate for him, right. I think.
He's a rule follower.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I got one of those too.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So, yeah, it's just very, very interesting because he does so well in every other setting. It's just not when it's unstructured and unsupervised school time.
Sure.
Yeah. So there was a lot going on at the school. There was a lot of horrible names that he was being called up there. Another school even noticed it because there was a joint track team. And so they even apparently contacted the school that my son was at and reported it. So we just decided to pull him. So I am now, once again, a homeschooling mom of an 8th grader. And this time, the kid's going to do his darn work.
Yes, he is. Auntie Annie said so.
Yes. Because he's already been accepted to a different private school for high school. The one that he was at, it ends with 8th grade. And so he wouldn't have stayed there anyway. So we're going to have a very fractured 8th grade transcript. Public school, private school, and then homeschool. But
hey, you know what?
We're getting it done. Yeah.
It's okay. You got to have some of those years where they're not perfect.
No, they are not perfect. But he is on medication for his OCD, and once we kind of get that all leveled out where we know it's working and everything, then we are going to be working on medication for ADHD, and I think that that will help. And he's just really excited about the school that he's going to go to for high school and getting started with cross country and everything. He's even excited about the homeschool stuff that we're about to start doing. And I'm about to start a new job. So, yeah, and it's a remote job. So that's exciting.
And you're building your business again.
Yes, my business is going to be back and better than ever. And I'm excited about this podcast. And there's just so much to be excited about. My mom is finally moving. I'm happy that she's going to get to go home and be around the rest of our family where she wants to be. That's where her friends are. And then Katelynn and I can kind of get back into our own routine. He's a little nervous. Kind of hurt my feelings the other day because he was like, I don't know if I want it to just be me and you. And then he was like, have you thought about maybe trying dating again? And I was like, boy, could we just chill for a minute? Grandma is leaving and we're going to do fun things together and I'm not interested in dating right now. So yeah, scratch that. But so anyway, right now the focus is getting kiddo through the end of the school year and the transition of Grandma no longer living with us. And I'm just excited to kind of see where the rest of the year goes and all of that. But that's the chaos that I am going to be managing for a while. So
and we just keep saying all good things, right?
Yes.
I think we both have kind of had a little stretch of not the great things.
Exactly.
And now we're both really kind of on this path of all good things and we get to do it together and it's super fun.
Yes.
So
yes, it is.
Before we wrap it up, I've got a couple questions and then a little game that you played with me.
Yay!
Tell me your favorite hobby.
Okay, so my favorite hobby, I am going to start incorporating your cozy reading with my favorite hobby, but my favorite hobby is reading self-help books. I'm sure nobody could have guessed that, but with all of the trauma and drama in my life, I need some self-help.
We're a little polar opposite on our readings, but that's okay. That's what makes us us.
Yes, absolutely.
What is your least favorite thing?
Least favorite thing. Okay, so I also hate hearing people chewing food. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I can get on board with listening to dogs eat their food.
You haven't listened to enough of the reels.
Yeah, maybe I haven't, so I will try that. But my least favorite thing is when people are grocery shopping and they park their cart on one side, but they're shopping for their item on the other side of the aisle. And so it's completely blocked and nobody can get through. It's so obnoxious.
Yep. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Totally hate it. I want to look at them and be like, you do know other people exist, right?
Right. They've never shopped in the state of New York, ever. The aisles are not big enough for that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to play a little game of this or that before we wrap things up.
Okay, let's go.
We're going to do 13 of them. So, number 1, burgers or tacos?
Burgers.
Number 2, stay up late, wake up early.
Stay up late.
Number 3, fiction or nonfiction?
nonfiction.
Self-help girl.
Yeah.
Number 4, indoors or outdoors?
Outdoors.
Number 5, planned or spontaneous?
Planned.
Number 6, camping or glamping?
Glamping for sure.
Number 7, painful truth or comforting lie?
Painful truth.
Number 8, introvert or extrovert?
1000% an introvert.
Number 9, see the future or change the past?
See the future. Yeah.
Number 10, sweet or salty?
I'm more of a salty person.
But not in, like, actual life.
Yeah,
Pretty
no.
sweet.
Yeah, not in actual life.
Number 11, be always slightly cold or slightly warm?
I would rather be slightly cold.
Number 12, beaches or mountains?
Mountains, 100%.
Number 13, last one, letters or emails?
Letters.
I love it. We're pretty much the same on a lot of them.
Yeah, on a lot of them we are. I know, and I hesitated on the fiction or nonfiction because I want to read more fiction. That's why I was like, oh, which one do I pick here? Because I want to read more of the stuff that you read.
Trying to bring her over to the dark side.
Yes, but I'm just so stuck in my ways. So we'll get there eventually.
We'll get there.
All right. Well, it was fun to share things with you that you may not have known about me.
Yes, I learned a few things tonight.
And definitely that our listeners don't know. But I really just hope that from this episode and the one about you, that our listeners can find things about us that they connect with. You know, we're not always going to be talking about ourselves, but I know we both wanted to just be able to share kind of our backgrounds and histories, and that way people can hopefully connect with parts of us, find things that they relate to, and hopefully that will help listeners, you know, decide if they want to kind of join us on this journey of our podcast, and, you know, they'll feel like, oh, hey, I might learn something from these ladies.
Or just relate, too, to feel seen, to feel heard. We're just kind of giving it to you raw, and be gentle with us while we do that, too, because it's a vulnerable place to be. But we feel like people's stories are important, and your stories are important, too. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that's it. That wraps it up.
Yes.
Thank you, Commander K.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share. And next time, we are going to be talking about culturally speaking, because we both have some different cultures in our family. So
yes, we do.
Stay tuned for that one. All right, Chaos Crew, that's a wrap for today. If you loved this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow commanders.
Don't forget, we're all in this together. Join the conversation in our Chaos Commanders community on Instagram and Facebook, where we keep it real, raw, and ridiculously fun.
Remember, our fears establish the limits of our lives, so go push past them.
And always leave others better than you found them.